simple process, and I will try to display it to the best of my ability. I have 9 pounds of some nice dark honey in the bucket here, using a 5-gallon bucket for primary fermentation. We're going to go ahead and mix some water with the honey to get our base of our must. Going to be doing 2 gallons of water to 9 pounds of honey, ending with about 3 gallons of total honey. I've already sterilized everything, made sure everything is nice and clean, used bleach and then rinsed everything off multiple times, warm water, so everything is nice and sterile. Pre-weighed the honey so you guys didn't have to see me lifting a big ass bucket. Okay, so there is now 2 gallons of water mixed in with 9 pounds of honey, coming to a total of about 3 gallons of total must. Big clean spoon, stir well. You want to make sure that the honey and water is completely mixed and that the honey is not just sitting at the bottom. So a good amount of stirring. The way I like to tell that the stirring is done is when you can pull out the spoon and there's no honey clearly dripping off of the end. So we're going to do a little bit more stirring. And there we go. That is just liquid dropping off. That's what we are looking for. So our must is properly mixed at this point. And we're going to take a hydrometer reading. Now, typically, you do it after the fruit is added, but I've always found that the fruit doesn't add much in the form that you can read it. So I find it's easier to just read what this is going to be, add the fruit, and it'll add what it'll add. We got our test tube here, along with our hygrometer. And this is just going to tell us what kind of alcohol content we can expect out of the finished product. So as we can see here, it's reading at about 1.120, which amounts to just over 15%. So that'll be a nice, strong mead. That'll be very tasty, especially with the large amount of strawberries. You always want to take notes of everything you're doing. Specific gravity, 1.120. Potential alcohol, 15%. That's a nice strong mead, right in line for what I typically aim for. Next part is adding our fresh fruit. Well, frozen fruit. A lot of people swear by only using fresh fruit. I've done both. I don't really find a difference. I find frozen fruit a whole lot easier. If you are using fresh fruit, you are still going to want to freeze it. It helps the sugars from the fruit break down better, and you end up with a better end product. So, if you are interested in making some mead at home, it's very simple to do. Honey, water, yeast. You can get a little bit more experimental with it, or by using additives and making it so you come out with a finer product. It's not necessary, but after you make your first couple of batches, you'll probably find that it is nice to come out with a cleaner product. And you'll refine the skill just like anything over time. Now typically, it's about a 3 pound of fruit to a gallon ratio, and same with honey, 3 pounds to a gallon, 3 pounds of honey to a gallon of water. And we are sticking true to both of those here. Now, a lot of people, when they make a 1 gallon batch, they're referring to 1 gallon volume. I don't like to do that because you don't end up with much left to bottle. So I like to use a full gallon of water and a little bit more than 3 pounds of honey to create a nice, tasty, powerful mead, and have more than 3 or 4 bottles at the end. So let me show you here. We have the beginning of a beautiful mead. Let me tell you, that is going to be absolutely delicious. Now, some of the additives, I like to use a little bit of yeast energizer and some yeast nutrient. The yeast energizer is about a ½ teaspoon per gallon. The yeast nutrient is a teaspoon per gallon. So I have 1½ of the energizer and 3 of the nutrient. So you're just going to want to add that in. And then give it a nice mix around to get everything incorporated. Make sure there's no chunks sitting on the top. And we are looking good. We are looking very, very good. Now, I already have some yeast starting. I don't like to pitch dry, so a couple more minutes and that yeast is going to be ready to pitch. So, any pointers I could give, make sure everything's nice and clean. It's not really necessary to be over obsessive about the cleanliness. A good one-step cleaner or some bleach and a good couple of rinses afterwards typically does the job pretty well. A lot of people obsess about making sure everything is completely sterilized. Using these store-bought sealed waters, you're not having to worry about any kind of contamination from those typically. Clean your bucket, clean your lid, clean your airlock. Yeah, just the easiest thing to do is clean up after yourself when you finish making a batch, and you don't have to worry as much when it comes to making your next batch. So I think our yeast is ready, and we're gonna go ahead and pitch the yeast. Give it one more stir, then give it a nice shake to get it oxygenated and make it so our yeast has a nice home to create some alcohol. And that is the yeast pitched. We're just gonna take the old spoon here. Sorry for my shoddy camera work. Give it a good spinning. That's going to make it so the yeast is incorporated, but the yeast at the beginning needs a substantial amount of oxygen as well as the sugar it will feed on through the process. So we're going to go ahead and seal that up nice and tight and give it a shake. And as you'll see, we created some nice oxidization. So the yeast is going to have a nice home to propagate our alcohol. At this point, put the lid on, make sure no floaties get inside, and we're going to go ahead and fill up our airlock. Right to the line. Cap her off and insert into the grommet hole on the bucket lid. Some people prefer glass for primary fermentation. I find buckets easier, and I don't find any difference in the end product. I have tried both ways. I prefer this for simplicity. And we are on nice and tight. Like I said before, it's always good to document everything. 2 gallons of drinking water, 9.5 pounds of strawberry, 3 teaspoons of yeast nutrient, 1.5 teaspoons of yeast energizer, 1 packet of Lalvin 71B-1122 yeast. I find that that is a very good yeast. Very beginner friendly, also very tolerant to alcohol. I've been able to create 1 or 2 meads that were 18% when all said and done. Go ahead and put that there, place it in a dark cabinet to sit for the next week, and I will continue to update as this continues to brew. Adios.